you don't understand, Mom. I have to think one way at home and another way at school. And I just was gut punched. I just thought, how in the world could the school be trying to change my child's morals and values that we're instilling in him? That's our authority, not the school's authority to do that. I give the school permission to teach them.
Hi, I'm Jeff Johnston with the Daily Citizen. We are focused on the family's culture and policy outreach, and I'm here with Lori Gimelshteyn from Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. Hi, Lori.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
So I met Lori a couple months ago. She was hosting this great summit, the Rocky Mountain Summit on Safeguarding Children, and they want to protect children from transgender procedures, and that was part of the work of Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. Can I just call it CPAN?
Sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you have they do other work too, and we're going to talk about some of that today. But you have a really amazing story of you are a mom and a wife and a successful businesswoman helping children. But then you started to see what was happening in schools, and you became more of an activist mom. Tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a speech-language pathologist, and I've been in private practice for over 2 decades. I love my career, love working with families, and I also run a charitable organization called the Let's Talk Initiative, and that's for children and adults with very complex communication needs that use alternative or augmentative forms of communication. And that was really my ministry. I started in 2016. And you know, at the same time as doing this, we have a wonderful family. I have 2 children. They're both in their teen years now. But we were very, very happy with our lives. And then when 2020 hit, I quickly learned, like parents across the nation, that something was not quite right at school, and our kids were being taught concepts that were based in ideology, and there was less of a focus on academics and more of a focus on changing their morals and values based on what we were teaching them at home. The school was teaching them something different. And so I just became first alarmed for my children and started the process of trying to uncover where the issue was. So I started, first reached out to the teacher, then the school principal, and then the school board, and then the district administration. And by the time I had gone through that sequence of connecting, I was very alarmed. And I realized that this was a much bigger problem than I could ever have imagined. And so part of my work as a speech pathologist has always been advocacy, helping parents navigate individualized education plans, IEPs, and 504 accommodation plans for their children, so that their children are getting the support services that they need in order to really learn and grow and have a successful adult life. And so I've been kind of set up in this unique role of being in advocacy and helping families and helping parents and helping children. And so as I got further involved in my research as to what was happening in the public school system, I started to think about, well, maybe I need to expand my advocacy to help parents have a voice, because that's what I recognized. I recognized that the school boards and the district administrators in the public schools really were not accountable to anyone, even though we are the consumer. The parent is the consumer.
Yeah, we pay their
salaries. We elect them to these board positions. And it was shocking how much leeway they had in implementing things that wouldn't typically be approved by parents. And so I got connected with Dr. Alveda King, who is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, and she's a Christian evangelist. And I had the great fortune to connect with her, and she was praying over us. And she is the one that actually inspired me to think about creating a statewide organization to help parents across the state. And it originally started in the educational arena, because that's where I was first alerted that there were problems. And then over the last several years, we actually formed formally in 2022. Okay. And so it's been 3 years, and we've actually advanced our mission because we actually see basically an assault on a parent's authority to direct not only their child's education, but their upbringing and care. And so that involves medical health care, mental health care, family court, child protective services, and education. So we're involved in all of those arenas, and also at the legislature, which prior to becoming the executive director of CPAN, the only time I had ever gone to the Capitol was on a field trip. And just getting actively engaged as a citizen myself, getting on a local commission in my city, and getting engaged in that local government, and then also getting engaged to meet the people that were representing us up at our state capitol and really uncover and learn more about the laws that were being passed that were setting the pathway for all of this harmful ideology that has really pushed itself into not only public and charter schools, but you do see it also in private schools,
Yes.
and people need to be alerted to that.
Yes. So, and you know that the Supreme Court has affirmed over and over that it is the parents' right to care for their children, to take charge of their upbringing and their education. And there's been this encroachment by state and local and sometimes even federal governments. Let's backtrack a little bit. What were some of the things you saw in your children's lessons, and a lot of this came out during COVID,
Yes.
that alarmed you, and then what other things did you uncover in the school district?
Yeah, so two major alarm bells that happened with my family, my personal family, is our daughter came home and shared with us when she was 11. She was now in 6th grade. This is in 2021. That a friend of hers was now going to be a boy and have a boy name and use he, his, him pronouns. And this was how she was describing it. She actually stated, and he's going to be using he, his, him pronouns and using the boys' room. And I thought I must have missed the email. And again, this was before the transgender craze that has overtaken our schools and nation was here, where we are right now in 2025. And so it was really the first time I had heard of this. And so my gut instinct was to say, wow, that's very progressive of this child's parents to ask the school to do a workshop. And she said, oh, no, Mommy, River goes home every day as a girl. His parents have no idea. Wow. And I just thought she must be mistaken. That can't possibly be what the school would do. And then my son came home, and he was in 8th grade at the time. He was 13, with an English language arts assignment that was, why is your favorite hobby racist? Why? And after looking at the rubric and seeing what he was being compelled to do, he was being compelled to make the statement that skiing, his favorite hobby, was racist against people of color. I made a comment to him and I said, Chris, you will get an F on this paper before you lie. We don't lie in this family. And he said to me, and this broke my heart because my kid is that academic kid. He actually just graduated as valedictorian of his class. And he said to me, you don't understand, Mom. I have to think one way at home and another way at school. And I just was gut punched. I just thought, how in the world could the school be trying to change my child's morals and values that we're instilling in him? That's our authority, not the school's authority to do that. I give the school permission to teach them math, reading, English, science, not this nonsense, this ideology. Yeah. And then, long story short, ended up really getting engaged in research and uncovered a lot of very harmful issues that are alarming, and parents around me that I was talking with were also experiencing these same conversations with their children. And I did the steps that you need to do. Talk with your teacher, talk with the principal, school board, and again, you just come to this realization that the whole system has been weaponized. And that's not every public school. No. There's a lot of public schools that's happening in the state of Colorado. We have 178 public schools, and that's happening in the majority of them. And they were incentivized to bring in this political ideology around what we call uppercase DEI, because it stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But as we have been talking, it's actually based in the tenets of critical race theory.
Yes.
And it teaches our children, based on immutable characteristics, their skin color, their gender, their sexuality, that they are either in a group of what would be called oppressors or oppressed. And the districts are requiring the teachers to take professional coursework in this, and then just as professional coursework should do, it should work its way into the classroom, and it's working its way into the classroom through school lessons, through surveys under the guise of mental health and well-being, and children are really demonstrating that they feel like they are bad based on something they cannot physically change. And that's so cruel and it's harmful. And then they're also teaching children that their gender and their sexuality is something that is fluid based on what they're feeling. And that it goes in opposition to what my husband and I are raising our children to believe in our Christian faith. You know, we do believe in the binary. We believe God created male and female, and we believe in virtue and encouraging our children to recognize and understand the blessing of intimacy with your spouse, and the harm that comes when you don't do that. And we have to really come together to see what's happening. We've built some really great resources for parents that can help them with guided discussion. You guys at Focus on the Family have tremendous back-to-school resources for parents. And I think we're in this really unique component in our society today, because for me growing up, my parents never really had to have that instruction. It was kind of just assumed because we were surrounded by it.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was married. You were surrounded, you know, by, in my case, in the way that I was raised. And, you know, you went to church and you had lots of instruction in values and morals. But that somewhere along the line, we've let the schools take that responsibility from us. And it's oftentimes was more comfortable for a parent to let the school deal with the reproductive health. Mm-hmm. But we have this really unique opportunity to start a legacy with our children. You know, a lot of these conversations you might not know how to start, but great resources at Focus on the Family, at coloradoparents.org for parents, because what you're doing is you're building this relationship with your child, instilling in them in what your morals and values are. And it also sets a legacy for them to become parents and to be able to have these conversations and stay in tuned to what is happening. You know, I always tell people, do not have blind trust in any government system.
No, and you're right. Kids are being taught that they're part of a systemically racist country that is basically bad. And then they are either oppressing people because of their color or their sex, you know, or their faith.
Right.
Christian white males who speak English are at the top of the oppressor chain.
Correct.
Or they're taught that they're a victim.
Correct.
And they're left in that status where they can never change it. So you began to find some of this out, and you went to the school board. What was the response of the board and the media when you began talking about these issues?
Well, I was really shocked because when I uncovered what was happening, I thought, well, my goodness, all I have to do is tell people that this is happening and everybody will be outraged and this will end. But the actual opposite happened, because when I spoke out in public comment at a board meeting, I particularly went to speak about the professional development called Beyond Diversity and Courageous Conversations, which is critical race theory in this oppressor-oppressed model. And I said, you know, I knew that there were some mandates by the past administration that required this type of professional development in order for the schools to receive funds. Mm-hmm. And so that they were bringing it in so that they could continue to get their grant money. And I actually questioned the board, not that they would answer me, but I posed the question, either someone told you this met the DEI initiative requirement and you didn't read it and you passed it, or you read it and you know what it says and you still passed it and you violated your oath of office. And because you make an oath to the Constitution. And the very next day I was in the papers as crazed parent, conspiracy theorist, I heard words like militia leader, anti-LGBTQ mom, and really just harmful, hurtful words. And what that did was it set the precedent for every parent around me that had concerns. They didn't want that to happen to them.
No.
They were afraid that they were going to be fired. They didn't want to take a stand because the risk was so great. And I'm very fortunate that, I'm in a wonderful, I have a wonderful family, a wonderful husband who's a wonderful provider. And we sat down and we really, prior to this, I would call us, kind of Sunday Christians, if you will.
Yeah.
I never really had a strong relationship like I have grown over the last 5 years with God that I have now, and really finding peace in God and the Word, and knowing that what I was doing was the right thing to do, and that we could not fear man. We couldn't. We had to move beyond that because we have to protect these children. And so we decided I was going to stop working and do this full time. And that was, guided by a lot of conversations, a lot of time in discernment, a lot of time in prayer. And that was really new to me. I mean, I always have prayed, but now I was having, just daily conversations on the hour and trying to find out where God needed me to be in this role. And so I'm very grateful for that because it really has strengthened my faith and my hope. It's given me great peace. People will say, how do you do all this? Because it's hard. There's a lot of bad things happening to children, and we have an incident reporting tool where we're helping lots of families navigating, where their child was persuaded and compelled at school that they're the wrong gender, they were born in the wrong body, it's tearing the families apart. We have cases where children are, being compelled to talk about their parents' political beliefs, and kids are coming home and having arguments with their parents about their political beliefs instead of discussions. And some of the cases are really, really hard. I mean, to the point where I could say I feel that the post-traumatic stress of dealing with these cases because they're awful. But there's so much hope because there's a very clear path on how we can fix this. And parents just need to come together, taxpayers, and you don't have to do what I'm doing. You don't have to go to give a public speech or whatnot. You can do something simple like fill out an opt-out form for your child to be opted out of some of these school lessons that introduce these topics. Or you could maybe want to help and volunteer. Most states have a parent rights organization now, and that is a huge blessing. That was never there before 2020 happened. Parents really woke up across the nation and said, wait, what is happening? We must take a stand against this. And we are shifting the culture. It's been incredible to watch this culture shift, to go from me being seen as this horrible outcast conspiracy theorist to, being able to meet with people on every side of the political aisle, because it's impacting everyone. And at the end of the day, when it comes to our children, it's not about politics. It's about what is right and what is wrong. Mm-hmm. And we must stand up for the future of our children, the future of our states, and the future of our country.
And you're right. Parents don't have to start a new organization. There have been a lot of grassroots groups that have come up. They can connect with those. They can connect with you. They can volunteer, as you said. They can donate. I'm sure what you're doing is super expensive, so anything along those lines would be helpful. CPAN is involved in 3 ballot measures for the 2026 election, and there's another group that you're part of. Tell us about the other group, and then tell us about those 3 ballot measures that are really important for our state. Yeah, it's really fascinating. So we're one of, I believe, 24 states that allows citizens like you and I to bring forth an initiative for the ballot for the people to vote on. And so what we've seen here in Colorado is really this kind of hostile takeover of our legislature that's passing laws that really undermine parental authority and really give the state a lot of power. And so this wonderful organization that I am very
blessed to serve on the board of is called Protect Kids Colorado. And this organization we started last year with the goal of bringing ballot initiatives that protect children to the ballot. And so we're extremely grateful this year because last year during our attempt, we were attacked very heavily. So we thought it would be pretty easy. We could go put this on a ballot, but it's pretty complex. We have to get a certain number of verified signatures, 125,000 signatures on each initiative. And we were actually sued all the way up to the Supreme Court by our opponents because we were able to secure title last year, and they knew that they would stall our efforts to collect those signatures in the needed time. But during that time, what was so amazing and just one of the most incredible things I've ever witnessed is the number of volunteers that signed up for Protect Kids Colorado to carry and circulate our petitions to get signatures. And we were able to secure nearly 80,000 signatures in less than 80 days when we should have had a 180-day period. And that tells you that in a state like Colorado, where a lot of people feel like it's a lost cause, that we the people are shifting this culture. And so this year right now, we actually are going to be beginning to circulate petitions beginning in September, and we have 3 ballot initiatives to protect children. And we've done polling on them, and they have polled incredibly well across the political spectrum, and we're very excited. The first one is if you buy or sell a child for sexual exploitation in the state of Colorado, you will go to prison for life with no chance of parole. The second one is prohibiting biological males from competing in female athletics in both public schools and private clubs, leagues, and organizations, and requires those leagues to create 3 categories: male, female, and co-ed. And then our third ballot initiative is to prohibit sex change surgeries on minor children.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, focus one of our main pillars has always been cultural engagement, that Christians and parents and families need to be engaging the culture on these issues. And you're doing it, and you're making a difference.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for your work. Thank you for encouraging other parents that even if it's as simple as opting their child out of a class or talking to their child about what's happening in school, networking with other parents, there's a lot of ways they can get involved. And I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here with us.
Appreciate the opportunity.